Big 10 Plus 4 is a member of Odd Pods Media and ASAP All Sports All Plays Network. Hello and good morning. Welcome back to Big 10 Plus 4. Sorry, Tony, I'm jumping around all over the screen there with the different setups there. I am Sam Sprunger on the other side of the screen. If you're watching on the video medium, we have Tony Hollinsworth. Tony, how are we today?
Doing great. It's Friday. We're coming up to the weekend. You know, football season is officially over. Now we got more kind of the off-season stuff going on. So it's college basketball season full time now.
I tell you what, college football could be just as entertaining in the off season.
Oh, 100%. We've learned that the last couple of years. It's like, oh man, there's really nothing going on. Surprise!
Well,
we got teams moving conferences. We got transfer portals.
I was flipping through like past pictures on my phone, and I came across something from last February, and it was Bill Murray saying it's Groundhog Day again. You know, that disgust of he's finally had enough in the movie. It's kind of, you know, we're repeating it over and over every year like clockwork. We're talking about whether or not Jim Harbaugh is going to come back to the University of Michigan. And we're going to talk about it just slightly more, a little bit more in a few minutes. But yeah, just look at my watch and go, yeah, it's about time. It's about that time to go through yet again another saga of where's Jim gonna be.
I think what you said when you said that he's like the pretty girl, you know, he just nailed it. You know, he's the girl that comes out and it's like, I'm single, you know, ready to mingle, I'm ready to live my best life.
Well, even you know, kind of that you know, that type of person that you just look at and you go, you know, you're married and you're still looking around. What kind of, you know, that maybe, I don't know. You know what? I don't know Jim Harbaugh on a personal level. I'm just basing my feelings of he would try to hit my dog if he was my neighbor on purpose, just based on kind of his reactions to things. I think Nick Saban's in the same boat. Yes. I think he might even drive up into my yard.
Which I couldn't believe something I saw last night. Somebody had posted in a SEC group like all the final coaches, like top 25 polls. And for the most part, all of them were the same. Like Georgia was number one. Everybody had Georgia number one. And then number two, majority of people had TCU. A couple had Ohio State. There's one person that had Alabama ranked number two in the country. And guess which coach
Nick
that
Saban,
was?
Right?
It was Nick Saban. I was like, really, Nick? Really, man? I'm like... No,
he couldn't even bring himself to like put himself or his team behind actual legit one-loss teams. Like
no, he couldn't.
That's what he refused to do. It's like, okay, we get it. And again, maybe that shows that when it comes to the coaches polls, they're not. We've known this for many years that many times it's the GA that's doing the voting anyway. But you know, Nick Saban went, yeah, give it to Georgia, but you make sure you put us number two because we would have beat them, you know, or whatever. Yeah,
we would have made that a game.
Right.
Like the funniest one I saw, and I think I sent it to you and Dalton in our group chat, was I saw the Bernie Sanders like photoshopped with Nick Saban's face, and it says, "I am once again asking you to ignore our losses." I'm like, yeah, that sounds like something Nick would do.
Yeah, he's a fun one. He's you know, and at every point a coaching career comes to an end, it's going to be sad to see him not being the coach at Alabama any longer. Not necessarily, not because I'm like, oh, I'm going too long for it. Just the funny quotes that he'll give that are so deadpan and serious. But if you dig into them and kind of analyze it, you're like, man, you're just hyping yourself up. That's all you're doing. Like It's nothing other than self promotion.
Yeah.
But
And I kind of laugh. I don't know if you feel this, but I think I've almost noticed it. You almost notice he keeps making Alabama out to be like this underdog, like this, this program that nobody's really expecting and everybody's counting out. And I'm kind of like, you said this, last year when y'all lost the, national title game that, oh, well, we were in a rebuilding year. And
I
now
can't
it's,
wait to hear what it was this year.
oh my god! You just think if last year was a rebuilding year, you had one loss and it was in the national championship. That's a rebuilding. What is this? Is this like a total meltdown? Like what? Because now you lost two. Are you really
I
like
didn't even make it to the championship game of your own conference, let alone the national championship game.
Yeah.
Whew. Rebuild. You took it down to the studs, is what you did there. Whew.
I don't
Down
even
to
know if
the absolute foundation.
I say, yeah, you just have a big old slab of concrete and you're like, all right, let's start building stuff with popsicle sticks and whatnot. Like,
Well, you know what? We've talked way too much about non-Big Ten stuff.
I agree.
Actually, that doesn't faze me, as I think we've just talked too long about Alabama. So big news out of the Big Ten here just this week earlier, and in between the time we came on Wednesday to today, it was being rumored that it was going to happen, but Kevin Warren is leaving the Big Ten as the commissioner and going to be the CEO and president of the Chicago Bears. Not a big move geographically for Warren, but what's this do for the Big Ten? Like, Kevin Warren is responsible for bringing in and getting in motion the USC UCLA move. Do you think that's done? Now, does this put that in jeopardy because he was the one that was kind of running that? Does that put it in jeopardy or anything? Or do you think that it's pretty much everything's in place now? Everything's in motion. The Board of Regents let UCLA or voted to let UCLA go. That's a go. And Kevin Warren decided at this point it was secure enough that I can go elsewhere and it will still follow through. Or does he not care? There's a bunch there. It's all yours.
I would say legally, I would say that's going to happen regardless. Just, I mean, you think about it. He was also integral in this massive TV deal that the Big Ten got between Fox, between NBC, CBS Sports, as far as getting all of the Big Ten in the prime light. So all of those contracts are signed. The ink has dried. So that's all there. Now I think maybe they might have some wiggle room as far as wanting to get out. But I think that would also be dependent on what does the Pac-12 do to maybe try and entice them back. Because if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't heard anything as far as updates to the Pac-12's TV deal. Because I know it was supposed to be coming up. And I know a lot of the questions was, well, they kind of have split ties between Fox and ESPN, and then they have their own Pac-12 network, do they try to go with somebody else? Do they try to exclusively go with ESPN like the SEC has? Because ESPN and the ESPN has lost all their rights to the Big Ten coming into the next year when USC and UCLA comes through. So,
well, this coming year they'll still have rights, correct?
Yes. This coming
23-24 season,
yeah,
is still business as usual as it's been.
Yep.
But then after start the 24-25 seasons when all these new contracts start.
Correct.
All over.
So, I mean, I think there might be some wiggle room if somebody wants to make some noise, but I don't think they would necessarily leave just because Kevin Warren is leaving. I mean, I think
I'm not saying that necessarily. I'm saying did he have the grasp and the ability to finish that out with when now that he's leaving? I mean, he's gonna be the Bears CEO and president. That's what he's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
And so like he's not coming back. No. So like are his replacements well equipped enough to finish this through to make sure all the ink finally dries to make sure that this happens?
I think so. I mean, the other big thing that we're probably going to be talking about and looking at when it comes to his replacement is, okay, well, what are you going to do? He led the whole TV, the new TV deal. He led, USC and UCLA coming into the Big Ten. What can this new one do? Is this new one going to try to maybe go a little bit harder at Notre Dame? And we don't know how hard Kevin Warren went at Notre Dame, and maybe he did, and Notre Dame still said no. So that's going to probably be, to me, more interesting is, what does this new commissioner do? Does he or she, because it could potentially be a she, does he or she come in and try to get not only Notre Dame, but then try to get another team to entice Notre Dame? Because you've got the USC rivalry, you've got Michigan, you've got Michigan State. They've had to face Ohio State here lately. Like we've talked about that. The rivalries, the seeding, the location. You're in the Big Ten backyard. All of it's there. But is there a commissioner that is potentially good enough to kind of seal the deal and finish either getting a definitive yes or no from Notre Dame on yes, we will join, or no, we will not be joining the Big Ten Conference?
Well, and I'm trying to look it up on the fly to see who is the interim, and I haven't seen any.
I say I haven't seen or heard any. That's what I was looking for. Even names that might be associated with replacing him. I think it's just so fresh still because it's only been about a couple days or so. So this is still pretty fresh. Or they may not even have. They may have one but haven't announced it yet.
I am looking though at the list of it's on the Athletic, and let's see who wrote it here so I can give proper by Nicole Auerbach and Matt Fortuna.
Okay.
They went through and put on a list of potential candidates to replace Kevin Warren after he's leaving. Current commissioner candidates. They've got broken down to current commissioner candidates, current campus, meaning they have some sort of an existence on a college campus, and then like the outside, non college or athletic place relation or whatever. Maybe, they have different things. But the first commissioner candidate is Jim Phillips. He's the ACC commissioner right now. Now, that's interesting to think about because that will tell you how secure Jim Phillips thinks the ACC is. If he's a serious candidate, my thought is if he thinks that the ACC is very viable to surviving all of this, is he going to run? Would he run? If he takes it in a heartbeat, maybe it's not as secure as they think, that maybe they've got a long TV deal right now. I think it goes through 36.
It does, yeah. It's 13 years.
So like that's 13 more years. Like they've got 13 more years. They don't have to renegotiate. I don't know that it's easy to renegotiate before it's up, but it also makes it hard for any ACC team to leave. So he knows that it's going to at least stay where it's at, probably more than likely. But if he leaves, that would be a one to think. Jennifer Heppel, she's the Patriot League commissioner. There's a potential suitor. I don't know much about the. She's been the commissioner of the Patriot League since the 2015 season. She did negotiate media and marketing rights to prove the visibility of the conference. She was with the Big Ten.
Oh,
Associate Commissioner for Governance from 2010 to 2015. So she has a link to the Big Ten, at least on that one. Sitting athletic directors, the one in Columbus, Gene Smith is a sitting athletic director candidate that they've put on the list here. What do you think about him? Honestly, he's got enough ties. I don't know that he wants to. Well, maybe, I don't know. I guess it depends where he wants to put his power, because like let's get to brass tacks. He's probably the most powerful athletic director in the conference by far, right?
I'd agree with that.
Seeing that I'm not an Ohio State fan and I know his name, UCLA athletic director Martin Jarmond. There's an interesting one. Make him the incoming commissioner. That would be that'd be an interesting thought. He did let's see here. It's some youth and energy. Never been mistaken for being on the cutting edge. So he spent most of his career at Michigan State and Ohio State's athletic departments. So he knows the Big Ten. He's with a team, a school that's going to be coming soon. He that's an interesting fit there, I think. But yeah. And then they have the president and COO of Fox Sports, Mark Silverman, as a potential candidate. Kerry Kenny, Senior Vice President of Television Media Analytics and Emerging Platforms at the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there are plenty of people but good for Kevin Warren for knowing what he wants to do and bringing on a new challenge. I would hate to think that he was running because something would be wrong. I'm not even out, even hinting that there may be, but it kind of came out of nowhere, even though it was a couple weeks ago that it came out, but it came out of nowhere. I didn't think Kevin Warren was looking to move to the NFL in any capacity, let alone president and CEO of a franchise.
I kind of saw it because if you remember, I mean, that's where Kevin Warren got his roots from. He was a Vikings. He was an executive for the Lions. He was an executive for the Vikings for.
I get that. I just didn't when you're he's the commissioner of probably. I don't think you can argue outside of number 2 strongest conference in the country. So there's a lot there.
Oh yeah, either number 1 or number 2, however you look at it.
1 and 1A, whatever.
Yeah, 1A, whichever. So I mean, I think it was also one of those you never really leave a good job unless you see another one that you're like, ooh, that could be fun. Like, ooh, that one has potential. I could go.
And maybe that has been his lifelong dream. At least he didn't put out a statement that said he's loved his time at the Big Ten and then he fully intends to be back next year, but he doesn't know what the future holds.
You mean like
at least he didn't do that?
You mean like a certain coach? Like, no, I'm fully committed to being to the Big Ten in the next year. Ooh, what we got over there?
I'm fully committed to Michigan unless something else comes.
Unless a really nice coaching job comes up and they're willing to pay me like triple my salary than what I've got right now. And then my future in Michigan will be in doubt and in question.
We're getting away from the Kevin Warren. Congratulations, Kevin Warren. I know you're listening because, we're the Big 10 plus 4 show. So, we're a big deal, but
we're big.
Hopefully he does well. And hopefully whoever they find out of this list, if it's out of this list, that's a pretty good list. I think they'll potentially get somebody that's really going to, if not follow completely, at least hold on to a lot of what Kevin Warren has established during his tenure,
Yeah, the only one that kind of makes me a little, I would say, skeptical, but not really, is the ACC commissioner. Because, I mean, it's not like he's done anything wrong. I mean, there's not much you can do, especially with, the SEC got their contract unlocked. They're not moving anywhere. The Big 12 is kind of poachable. Not really. I mean, to me, the Big 12 kind of reestablished themselves when they got, UCF, they got Cincinnati, they got BYU, they got Houston. Yeah. They solidified themselves both football and basketball, like we talked about, a few weeks ago. Gonzaga was potentially talking about moving there. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot the ACC could do to poach other than if they tried to poach whatever was left from the Pac-12 if they really wanted to. So I am a little skeptical, though, because, I mean, your hands are kind of tied with what you do in the ACC. So, your hands aren't necessarily tied with what you can do in the Big Ten, but, kind of like we talked about, the ink is, starting to dry on some of these. Could he potentially screw that up? If you know what I mean. Unless he's just like, nope, whatever is there, just leave it. No touch.
I don't know anything about Jim Phillips other than he's the commissioner of the ACC. That's the only thing I know.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Although that could be a benefit, because if he's the commissioner of the ACC and has been for a few years, I mean, he could have been a part of that deal that maybe entices Notre Dame a little bit more of like, hey, you wanted to come to the ACC and play teams, I'm a familiar face. I kind of know Notre Dame. I know,
reading a little bit more about Jim Phillips is the ACC commissioner. He is from Chicago originally. He was a basketball manager at Illinois. Spent much of his administrative career at Notre Dame, Northern Illinois, and Northwestern. So
Oh,
he does have a Midwest tie. So I guess that would make more sense as to why he is more connected to this list than just being the commissioner
yes.
or the commissioner of the ACC. So
Well, and those
while I
Notre Dame
don't
ties might
necessarily
help him too.
correct, and maybe that's why he's on this list is because he spent so much time in his career administratively. It
Yeah.
wasn't as a student where he could have been missed as a student, even if he had connection to the basketball team. He had administrative time at Notre Dame. He knows some people that are probably moved up
Mm-hmm.
and that have Jack Swarbrick's ears a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe he is seen as maybe the potential way to add Notre Dame. I guess it's all dependent on where the Big Ten Conference wants to pursue next, and maybe we read into it that way. Is we look to see if they push hard towards Jim Phillips, maybe they're really pushing. They want to get Notre Dame in.
Yeah.
If they want to make sure USC and UCLA come in, maybe they go after the athletic director at UCLA,
UCLA.
Martin Jarmond.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, or maybe we're reading too much into it, and it's just whoever's the best person for that job.
Yeah.
I it's very possible that maybe with the way she was able to do the Patriot League and get a good more money and more visibility to the conference, maybe Jennifer Heppel's the one you go for. There's just so many different, and I see why they're all on this list, but it's just interesting to see where the Big Ten's going to go, because there's still a lot in the air going forward. Whoever steps in isn't going to step in and have time to put their feet up for a minute.
Yeah. No.
They're hitting the ground running, and they've got to add more teams, or whatever it takes, figure out the division thing that's coming down the pike.
That will probably be the big one. To me,
Yeah.
that'll probably be the big one. They also mentioned that Kevin Warren was integral in the whole college football playoff expansion.
Yeah.
And, when it would kick off. So yeah, to me, I think the biggest one is going to be how is the Big Ten going to be, for lack of better terms, fought for when it comes to, especially when it comes to football, which is kind of your main big money deal is football. So, is it going to be just or one big conference? You rotate all the big powerhouses through. You have a few, kind of bottom team schedule, and you guys maybe get 1 to 2 at most out of conference games you guys can play. But other than that, you guys are playing everybody in the conference.
At what point do you think they say you get 1 out of conference game? You're playing 12 conference games. See, though, here's the thing: there's no parameters, and I know we're running along yet again in the first quarter. Shocker.
We always do,
but like until the NCAA puts down some sort of parameters, which good luck waiting on that. Until they put parameters, the SEC is not going to go more than 8 games.
No.
So why in the world would the Big Ten say, okay, we're going to beat the crap out of each other?
Yeah, each other.
And then play 1 out of conference. They're going to play. I'm shocked they still play 9.
Yeah.
Because that's 1 more conference game.
Well, and I like your point of that. And that was going to be my other thing of, again, if the NCAA had a over-body committee that actually cared, I would also say, okay, well, if you're gonna schedule an out-of-conference game, it can't be this basically Division III school that you can drop.
Yeah, those shouldn't count
points.
I know they. I don't believe they count towards your overall schedule, but they count as a win or something. Like the stats count, but that doesn't count as a win to help you in that. But still, just don't schedule it. I love the idea, and I'm sorry to hijack your point here, but I love the idea of somebody, I forget who it was, make those the spring games.
Yes.
If you want to play Farley Dickinson, Michigan, play them in the spring.
Yes.
Still give them their money because you've got money.
Yep.
They'll want to come because they get the exposure at that big, but yet make it's not counting. You're still getting to flex your muscles against Farley Dickinson, and I'm sorry Farley Dickinson for picking on you. I don't even know if you've got a team that would play Michigan, but like back in 2005, honestly, App State shouldn't have been playing Michigan, even though they won. They shouldn't have been playing Michigan. They were an FBS or FCS school, at that time.
Yep.
Those games should not be happening.
No.
In games that count, because by all means it's either going to be really embarrassing to the team that should be winning, or it's going to be 85-6, and they're just not fun to watch. It's fun to say, ooh, we watched Michigan, and I'm sorry, Michigan, you just have the track record with Hawaii, Colorado State, and UConn. But you get to watch your guys play, but how fun is it actually to watch?
Yeah.
Other than being in the environment, so make those your spring game and play some actual teams. I like the expansion of the playoffs simply for the fact it will allow teams to lose games. So if they start scheduling games against good teams and they happen to lose, it's not automatically eliminating them from, and then they still have the ability to trip up in conference.
Right.
To me, that's the key. So I'm sorry to totally hijack you and go further, but yeah.
Oh no, you and I were basically on the same path, because I mean that's my thing. It's like, okay, you look at, we'll take Georgia for example. Like, you look at next year, Georgia has like 4 cupcake. Like, they play Ball State at one point. They play another couple, even smaller schools than that. And I'm like, okay, so Georgia at one point is potentially going to be 4-0 in those games.
In fairness, though, Ball State at least is in a conference you've heard of.
Yeah,
and they compete in the FBS.
They do.
At least you have that. I understand your point, but at least it's not like, and no offense to Jennifer Heppel, the Patriot League's best team or whatever, or the middle of the road Patriot League team. You're not playing them. You're playing at least a Ball State that has been to a few bowl games recently, at least.
Yeah. But
I get your point totally.
Yeah, but that's what's kind of aggravating is, if you look at it, say at minimum you play 12 games, okay, a quarter of your schedule is cupcakes. It's like, all right, well, what? And again, that's what leads a lot of people into question about some of these. Is it's like, okay, well, who have you faced? Like, you have 8 wins, but half of them were against cupcakes,
and it's a quarter of your schedule that you chose.
Yes,
another quarter of your schedule could be just the conference schedule itself. So half your schedule could be cupcakes because of your scheduling. And so if you're allowed to lose a game against a tougher opponent in the early going, much like an expanded playoffs would do, it would allow a 2-loss Alabama to go in.
Yes.
So it would allow, let's say, Georgia to schedule TCU as a kickoff game or something. Or whatever, and they play, and let's say TCU this year or this time beats them.
Yeah,
Georgia's still really good. Maybe TCU's better. So then they go through their season, and Georgia gets beat by, Tennessee this year. So they go in, they do get to the SEC championship, they win it. They're what, 11-2, 12-2.
Yeah,
but they still can get into the playoff.
Well, and think about how we looked at that too. I mean, you looked at Alabama, their biggest thing was, well, we lost to 2 teams in the SEC. And of course, all the SEC fans I've ever heard of, well, you could take, a Vanderbilt and put them in, say, the Big 12 or the ACC.
And they would still blow.
Yes, true. But to SEC fans, they don't see it that way. But
they'd win the conference. No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. They're not a good program. It's just like most of the time, historically, Northwestern's been absolute trash most of the time.
Yes.
That's not, I love Northwestern too. But they've not performed well historically in the Big Ten.
Yes.
We're not going to put them in. I wouldn't even pick them every year in the MAC.
No.
They might win a few more, but don't give me that. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Nope.
But to me, and we'll finish this up because we are running heavy.
Extremely. We're going to have
extremely.
about a 3-minute second quarter.
Right. To me though, it would give you an opportunity to show like who is really the best out of your conference. If you just beat the crap out of each other, we'll take the Big Ten, for example. So we'll take the Big Ten and say it's 12 games and say, we'll say Ohio State comes out of it and they're, 10-3 by the end of this stretch with, just Big Ten games. Okay. So you lost 3 games within your conference. You look at the SEC. Georgia faces majority of the SEC teams and they go 11-2. Okay. So though, to me, okay, you went through majority of your conference and you only lost 2 games in your own division with teams that see you all the time and you have to deal with all the time. That's pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same argument that a lot of people made for Penn State. They were a fantastic football team this year. They only lost to, Michigan and Ohio State. And for the most part, that Ohio State game, they were pretty well with it until, Ohio State was able to pull away with a couple big plays.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me, while I get your point, it does kind of suck if one conference decides, well, we're just going to beat the crap out of each other as compared to another. I would also make the argument, well, they have more games that matter because these are opponents that face them all the time. These are more quality wins to me to basically own your conference than it is for me to go beat up basically the Mountain West Conference Junior over here for, absolutely nothing.
Yeah. It's tough. The NCAA and the NCAA needs to do something about it. They're still a governing body. They can pass those things and say, look, but of course they don't run their tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Their postseason football tournament. So really, they can't say, well, you have to play 10 conference games. Because if you're looking at the SEC's going, no, we're not playing an extra conference game.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna.
Yeah.
Why would we have Alabama play the likes of Georgia in a regular season game now when we can basically pencil it in 3 out of 5 years as the championship game, and that's the best game most of the time of the year?
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, but then it keeps the door open that more SEC teams can go into the playoffs because they have
for sure.
records. So
yeah. So, all right, finally, way heavy. We're going to make it, or literally probably only a couple of minutes on the second quarter because we just want to brush upon that topic anyways. So let's go to the second. All right. We're back from the quick whistle,
Right.
But we're looking at Jim Harbaugh. No real big news coming out lately in the past couple of days. We talked about him on Wednesday with Dalton, kind of got into it there. Nothing really has from my understanding and kind of looking, nothing new has really come out, but I really honestly would not be shocked. And except for I've talked to friends that are fans of some of these franchises that are open. And it seems to me that Indianapolis really wants him.
Yeah. Indy, like I said, the 2 teams to me that are the biggest that have really gone after Harbaugh has been Denver and Indy, especially now that Indy got eliminated from the Sean Payton race.
Yeah.
Apparently Carolina, for obvious reasons, they're in division. There's nothing that the Panthers are going to be able to really do that the Saints are going to be.
Can I ask real quick with Sean Payton? How serious are you going to take him as a candidate if he's refusing to go to places because of the fact that he coached in that division? Seriously, do you still have alliances and allegiances with New Orleans? Because if that's the case, go back to New Orleans.
Well, no, that's the thing you have to remember. So he's still under contract with New Orleans. So in order for him to go,
so New Orleans won't let him go there as well.
Correct.
But here's the thing: does it really matter if we're getting something out of him? I really don't care where he's going.
Because
I think
New Orleans.
I think for us as New Orleans, if we're New Orleans, we're gonna. It wasn't Sean Payton that was throwing the balls. It wasn't Sean Payton that was running through the line. We put the people on the field. Yeah, Sean Payton coached them, but if they don't have the executives making the decisions and things like that, signing the players,
we got to remember.
Will the coach matter?
Majority of the Saints staff and
are the LSU fans that told Drew Brees to remember his roots. That's right. I forgot. Never mind.
True. But you also got to remember, a lot of this staff and team is still what Sean Payton built.
No, I get that.
So,
it just to
but
me,
yeah,
yeah, I think Jim Harbaugh, if he's, I think he's leaving if he gets an offer from anybody.
I
That's
think
truly my thought,
Mhm.
and I stated that on Wednesday. But I think if he had multiple offers and one of them's Indy, he's going to Indy.
I think so.
I think he has enough sentimentality to have that. If the money's comparable and it's a familiar place, he'll go to the familiar place over the one that's an unknown.
And I mean, geographically, it's not bad for him.
Yeah,
It's
it's
then
just
what, like
straight
a
down
3 hour drive.
I-69, straight to Indy.
Yeah, it's like a 3 hour drive. You're still close to your family. You know, your kids can still be close to their grandparents. Like it would be a win-win for him.
Well, let's get to brass tacks. They can move Grandpa and Grandma down to Indy with them if they want. He's gonna make enough money.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's all in flux. It's developing as we speak. Basically, I mean that's
Mhm,
literally how this is going to work. And like I mentioned earlier, it's that time of the year.
mhm.
We could set our watches and calendars by it. End of the college football season. Where's Jim Harbaugh going to be next year?
Yep.
I talked about that also maybe last week. I've been, well, no, it was Wednesday. I've been doing podcasting or this type of work for 3 years.
Mhm.
Every year I've felt that Jim Harbaugh was going to leave after the season.
Yeah. And like I said, you always kind of wondered throughout when, Michigan couldn't finish, beating against Michigan State, for that long stretch there, they couldn't beat Ohio State. So it's like, all right, Jim, you haven't been as successful in college. Are you ready to try to come back into the NFL to maybe see if you can
Well, we
do
thought
that?
Michigan might fire him too at the beginning of that
Yeah.
stint where I started covering him. We thought maybe Michigan had enough.
Yeah.
He only had one more year left on his contract. We're going to let you ride this one out, and we're just not going to renew you. Then all
Yep.
of a sudden, oh, we're going to renew him. And then, yeah. So, I mean, I don't think I think he's always been looking to leave. Not
Yes.
that he hasn't, and he's not a dumb man. I
No.
mean, you don't get into the positions that you're in and do it by being dumb. You just don't.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting to see if this is the year that he actually jumps ship and goes back to the NFL. I just think his stock is so high that somebody's going to offer him a contract.
Yeah.
I think somebody's going to offer him a job within the next week or two, and he's
Mhm.
going to be in the NFL.
Yep.
Now, are there some playoff teams that could fire their coach or have their coach resign or whatever? Sure. There's one that I'm thinking of that's got that big star right over your right shoulder there. That's one that I think could be opening up. And oh my good Lord, can you imagine Jim Harbaugh in Dallas?
I don't want to see that. I
No,
don't
I'm not
want to see
saying
that.
I'm saying,
But
can
no,
you
no, no. I
imagine
get
him
your
being
meaning
there?
though.
That
Like,
personality with Jerry Jones.
oh my
Do you
god.
think there'd be fist fights?
Yeah, I don't think Jerry would hire him because of that.
I think I totally see that, but he also likes being the one that has the prettiest girl too.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? The shiniest toy or whatever. I mean, he's got Jera World, so I mean, like that $35 billion building that he's got there.
Hey, that he signed, that he paid for out of his own pocket.
I give him mad props about that part.
Yeah.
He did not take any sort of municipal funding to build that place. So good on him.
Yep.
You know what? You do you. And I give you kudos on that, but can you imagine Jim Harbaugh and Jerry Jones running around Jera? Can you imagine Jera saying
Jerry.
something to Jim and Jim's running after him with a clipboard or something? You're like, nah, I honestly do think though, and I've said it twice already, he's gone if he gets an offer. I really just truly believe that, have believed that for a really long time. And do you
Oh
have
yeah.
anything else to add to this little part
Oh no.
until we
And
break?
there are plenty of NFL teams right now, and like you said, even after the playoffs are over, somebody would hire him in just because, oh hey, big
I'll be
name, big
shocked.
fish out there.
And, excuse me. What will be even more shocking is if he gets an offer and he turns it down to return to Michigan. That would shock me even more.
Well, I mean, you could think about it, and I hate to even bring this man's name up. He could pull an Aaron Rodgers, like he could at a Brett Favre, like he just does it every year, so his name's out there. So everybody's like, "Ooh, what's Harbaugh going to do? Where's Harbaugh going to go?" He's always the center of
Honestly,
attention.
I don't doubt that. I think that might be the reason why he kept, flirting with, even no matter how serious or not it was that, he would be leaving. But I think once it gets serious and they actually offer, like last year, he was leaving.
Mhm.
He was going to Minnesota expecting the job.
Yep.
And he didn't get it offered to him.
Yep.
Like that's how serious he is about leaving Michigan. And don't tell, that was the biggest year they'd had to date.
Yes.
And he was super hyped that he was going to go to Minnesota.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden they didn't offer it to him. And he came back and did the same thing with a lesser, and I use the air quotes, a lesser, because it wasn't necessarily a lesser team, but a lesser hyped team. He did the same thing and should have been to the national championship game. He wasn't, but he got his stock raised more.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think he's gone if he's offered. So let's go to half. You are listening to Big 10 Plus 4, hosted on Anchor and StreamYard.
I'm Richie, aka Midnight Agent Raw.
I'm Devin, aka Special Delivery Dev.
We're the Super Media Bros podcast. And each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
Music,
television,
pro wrestling,
and much more. Check us out at supermediabrospodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Shades on.
We're off.
Once upon a time.
Boring.
It was the best of times. It was the worst.
You got that right.
What's your problem?
We want new stories.
Hi, it's Frankie.
And Garrett. And we host the Ever Trending Story, a weekly podcast where we bring to life a fictional story created by our own minds and some of the hottest, craziest trends from the internet.
Find us wherever you download podcasts, and be sure to join the fun on social media at EverTrendingPod.
All right. Hey, I didn't hit the button this time. So we didn't get the double whistle. Now we're back from the half. We're going to jump to the other realm that we cover a lot of, and that's basketball. We're getting into the swings of both the women's and the men's season. And there are some games that are coming up. There are some teams that are performing. There are even just a couple of topics that we brushed upon the other day with Dalton that I still want to kind of talk about. And the first one is IU and Illinois, because Dalton made the statement the other day on Wednesday that he feels that the Big Ten champion, the one that gets the crown, the big trophy at the end, will have 13 or 14 wins, which means they're going to be 13-7 or 14-6. That's they play 20. So that's the way it's going to break down.
Yep.
And if you look at IU's schedule right now, or record right now, they lost last night. Excuse me. Last night? Night before last. Sorry.
Yeah, night before last. Wednesday night.
They lost Wednesday night to Iowa, correct?
Penn State.
Penn State thumped them.
Yes.
Iowa was yesterday. Not IU, but sorry. I'm thinking producing and thinking at and talking at the same time is not a good thing. They lost to Penn State. They didn't look good. They got thumped. They were down by 20 plus and ended up losing the game by 19 to good Penn State team. But that takes them to 1-4. If you look at what Dalton said, at very least 13 wins is going to win the Big Ten.
Yep.
If IU wants to win the Big Ten at that record, they need to go 12-3 the rest of the way. Have they already put themselves already in too big of a hole to recoup and be Big Ten champions?
Oh, to me, yeah. Because I mean, and I'll be pretty quick with it. You look at their next few games as far as schedule goes. They host Wisconsin this coming Saturday. Then they go to Illinois. Then they host Michigan State. Then they go to Minnesota, and we don't know how Minnesota's going to be. They just knocked off Ohio State, and I don't think anybody expected that.
That was shocker of the week, in my opinion, because Ohio State's pretty good, and Minnesota did it in Columbus.
Yes. And then IU hosts Ohio State after that. Then they go to Maryland. And then keep in mind, they still have to face Purdue twice.
Yeah.
And then Rutgers. And then they have to face Michigan twice.
And they've already lost to Rutgers.
Yes, once. And then they still have to face Illinois and Michigan State again in that. And then you still have Michigan to deal with twice. So to me, yeah, they're in a hole that they're not going to be able to get out of.
Honestly,
unless those other teams just super fumble along the way, there's no way Indiana's going to be able to recover from that.
Honestly, the way I'm seeing it is if they were to recover and let's say tomorrow all their injuries are gone, they're still going to lose 5 games probably.
Oh, easily.
That puts them at 9 losses. That puts them at 11-9. So they're middle of the pack. That's conservative, I think. I mean, they could be under 500 by the time we get to the Big Ten tournament. They may much be in the same boat that they were in last year.
Where they had to fight to get in.
And I still think that the committee's really screwed up what they did with the Big Ten teams in the tournament. I think Michigan should have been in a play-in game, and either Rutgers or IU should have been put into Michigan's slot as a solid in. But that's last year. Let's stop worrying about that. But still, I think they're going to be much in the same position. The way they're playing, if they improve, they will improve. I don't doubt that. But I don't know that they make it up over 500. For the Big Ten season. It's a big trek. And they're on a still, I haven't seen the upslope come back yet. Like you haven't seen them start to improve it yet.
Yeah.
You know, a 19-point loss to Penn State, which Penn State's 3-3 in the conference. So it's not that they're bad. They're 12-5 overall. So they've got a good, strong, solid record. They've got a good, strong, solid team. But in Big Ten, they're 3-3. So, you know, IU has lost to a 3-3 team.
Yeah. And here's the crazy part. So even as of right now, so we're 9 days away against Michigan State versus IU. IU is favored by almost 79% in that game currently. Even
over
with
Michigan State.
Over Michigan State. As it sits right now. 9 days.
Michigan State sitting at 4-1 in the conference, 12-4 overall. They've won 7 in a row. And IU is, let's see here, they're 1-4 in the conference, 10-6 overall, lost 3 in a row. And IU is an 80% probability.
Yep.
Is it in Bloomington? Is that why?
Yes.
Okay. I can accept maybe a little bit of a bump to the probability because of the home court.
But still,
that would be the only thing that I would accept.
But you think 80%? Like I can see like
no, I don't. I don't think because
really
even if they were a coin flip, you know, talent wise, you're not given a 30% bump because of environment.
No.
I think they're basing that maybe those injuries will be done. Maybe I don't know. This weekend we got a couple of games. Today, Friday. Excuse me. We've got Purdue and Nebraska playing. Michigan State and Illinois.
Yep.
At Illinois. That's going to be a good game because you've got Michigan State who's sitting at 4-1 in the Big Ten. Illinois sitting at 2-3. Illinois is 1-2 in a row, so they're trending up. But they still have a lot of questions there too. That's the crazy thing is the top 2 teams in the preseason poll for finish are 1, 2, 3, 3-7.
Yeah. And Illinois is 8-1 at home right now. So there's a lot of questions. I think that Nebraska and Purdue game is going to be good too. Because I mean, Nebraska's had a couple close calls and they played Purdue earlier this year. Didn't
this one's in Mackey though. That's
right.
That's the one caveat. And I don't know if it's other teams, but I've always noticed going to Piscataway and going to Lincoln have always been just really tough trips for Purdue to make.
Yeah.
And not that that's excusable. I'm just saying I've noticed that it's kind of like when they have to go to Penn State back in the day when they go to Happy Valley. It was like the crowd was on top of it. It's a different environment and it rattles you.
Yeah. And keep in mind, Nebraska only lost by a 3-pointer against Purdue the first time they faced.
Yeah.
So this will also be a really good matchup. This will be better. This will be better than what it looks like on paper.
It doesn't get any easier for IU because tomorrow they've got Wisconsin. They've
Yeah.
got it at home.
They do.
They've got it at Wisconsin. If you're in the Bloomington area, you could go watch that game for $60 if you wanted.
No.
I'm not in the area and I still don't want to. Then Sunday there's some Ohio State at Rutgers. It's going to be a pretty good game on Sunday. Northwestern Michigan lost last night. Did they lose last night? I forget.
Let's see. Thursday night. Yes, they lost to Iowa last night.
There we
in an
go.
overtime game.
Iowa in overtime beat them. So Michigan down to 3-2 in the conference, but they're going to be playing Northwestern, who did lose to Rutgers the other day, but played really well. I still think, and we had a poll question that asked, do you take the possibility of Northwestern being this good or this maintain their current trajectory, or however you want to call it. I don't even know how you want to call it. But we were split 50-50. Half of the voters said yes, half the voters said no. I think that's just, we need a few more games under our belt to see if Northwestern is going to fall back to earth, like I mentioned earlier last week, or if they're going to surprise some people and be that dark horse to where they're actually going to compete.
Yeah. And right now, Michigan's currently favored 54.6% over Northwestern. So 55% to 45% in favorability.
Well, and moving to the women's side, last night was a pretty big game at in Bloomington. The Indiana Hoosiers women's basketball team beat Maryland. Yeah, 68-61. That IU 15-1, still number 6 in the country. Maryland was number 9, but you expected a pretty decent game, and that's exactly what we got on that game. Sydney Parrish led the Hoosiers with 18 points, and Diamond Miller for Maryland had 19 for the losing side.
Yeah.
I think this might be a pretty good tournament for the ladies when it comes, because you've got Ohio State, you've got IU, you have, I mean, there are plenty of really good. Purdue showed some. Iowa, we're not even talking about Iowa, and they've got probably the best player in the conference for like the third straight year in Caitlin Clark, and we're not even mentioning Iowa yet.
Yeah, sorry. I'm looking at Ohio State's 3, Indiana 6, Iowa's 12, Illinois 24, Michigan 17, Maryland's 9. I mean, that's,
and we mentioned, Dalton mentioned that there are 6 ranked women's teams in the Big Ten. Only 2 on the men's side, but 6 on the women's side. And you've got Penn State, Purdue, sitting right there. Wisconsin, I'm going to say, is an anomaly at 2-4 because they're overall 6-11. So I don't think that they're probably going to stick around. Michigan State 2-4. Like, there's a big backlog of 2-4 teams on that top second half. Top of the second half. So I think they're going to work themselves out to where it's going to be an exciting tournament when it comes around finally.
And keep in mind, the Ohio State women's team is one of only 3 right now that are undefeated, like overall.
What was that? South Carolina,
and LSU.
And then Ohio State. Yeah.
And Ohio State. Yep. And let's see. Ohio State's ranked number 3. South Carolina's ranked number 1, and LSU is ranked number 5 currently as it stands.
Stanford's still number 2.
Let's see here. I believe so. Let me double check here. I'm looking. Yeah, Stanford is still number 2. They're 16-1 overall. And then the Utes, the women's Utes, are 14-1 as well. So good team out there in Utah.
We talked about those 6 teams being ranked on the women's side. All 6 are within 2 games of one another.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting season for it to play out on the women's side. So we really need to move.
We do.
I actually, let's move. All right, we moved to the fourth quarter. We're going to have abbreviated headlines. I'm going to omit mine. Dalton's got one. I will release mine at a later as an extra, just so we can stay under that hour. But let's join Dalton Shetler and his Dalton Daily. Tony.
Okay. For the Dalton Daily this week, I wanted to take a look at the College Football Hall of Fame because the latest class has been announced, and you've got some of college football's greatest of all time. Reggie Bush, Tim Tebow, Dwight Freeney's in here, Luke Kuechly, you have Brian Westbrook, D'Angelo Williams. I mean, it's a star-studded class, and you might be asking yourself, out of those names, not really a Big Ten connection. Well, there are a couple of Big Ten representatives, one being Troy Vincent, who now, of course, is the VP of NFL operations. He played at Wisconsin back in the early 90s from 88 to 91. He ended up being, I believe, co-Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year in his final season there in Madison. And then down in Iowa City, you have Robert Gallery, offensive tackle for the Hawkeyes from 2000 to 2003. He was an Outland Trophy winner, ended up being named the Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year award winner in his final season, and he ended up being the second pick in the NFL draft, where he went on to play for the Oakland Raiders. So I know the Big Ten normally has maybe a higher volume of guys getting in, but I thought to be a part of a class that, again, has maybe one of college football's greatest quarterbacks of all time in Tim Tebow, at least in terms of resume and accomplishments and winning, and really just in terms of fame. You put him with Reggie Bush, this entire class, and you still have a couple of Big Ten guys represented in there with Troy Vincent, Robert Gallery. Really a great thing to see. Congratulations to both of them. Congratulations to those fan bases, those universities, those programs. It's a terrific honor, and now their names are immortal in college football lore.
There's the Dalton Daily. I forgot about Robert Gallery. He very quiet, and like you didn't hear about him, and that's, I guess, one of those things that they have. They're doing their job when you don't hear about what they're doing. You know what I mean? They're making things happen. So, all right, let's move to the Tony Tribune.
Ooh.
And do your headline. Then we'll get going. So, got to be quick.
I know. So I'm going to give a little bit of love to my enemy state of Wisconsin. They have actually done extremely well with Luke Fickell as their head coach and their recruiting so far. Not only did they get former Cincinnati receivers Quincy Burrows and Will Pauling, but they also got 4-star recruit CJ Williams out of USC. They are hoping that they get big production out of him because, surprisingly enough, Sam, I don't know if you know this or not, only 3 receivers have ever hit the 1,000-yard receiving mark in Wisconsin history. So they're hoping that CJ Williams could potentially do the same. It's pretty interesting that he decommitted from USC to go there. So I kind of wonder what he sees as well as what Luke Fickell sees with Hudson Card being the quarterback, former Texas starting quarterback. He did okay for Texas. And of course, he knew he was going to be drawing out a lot of Cincinnati players back to Madison, Wisconsin. So it'll be interesting to see. Huh?
Didn't Hudson Card go to Purdue?
No. Oh, wait. Yes, he did. Never
I
mind.
was going to say, I thought he went to Purdue.
Somebody went to Wisconsin. I don't even remember who.
That's all right. I didn't mean to hijack your headline, but
no, I was like, didn't he go? No, he went somewhere in the Big Ten West. I can't remember where though.
Yeah, he's a Boilermaker.
Okay.
Anyways, is that your Tony Tribune? All right,
that's my Tribune.
Well, I will go ahead then and take the socials and whatnot. Once I get to the stinking overlay, geez, oh Pete's. Okay,
here we go.
Now, since we've kind of wrapped up, and like I said, I'll release my headline as an extra, so we stay under the hour long. On socials, you can find us on the TikToks, the Twitter and the Instagram at Big 10 plus 4. You got to spell out the plus though, Tony. On Facebook, you can spell out plus, you can put the plus, you can just think about it and it will show up pretty much. If you can also find us on oddpodsmedia.com. We are the only sports show on that network, but there are some awesome shows, music, beer, pop culture, television, all sorts of fun stuff. Interview, conversations, things like that. Then we're also on ASAP Network twice a week. We are live twice a week, streamed. If you miss the streams on ASAP, you can just go over to Spotify. You can watch us or listen. You can also find us anywhere else that you find podcasts. Tony, that's it.
That's it.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Bye.